1976 was a year that gave us some incredible songs that deserve way more recognition than they got. You may have forgotten some, you may not. Share your memories in the comments. Let's get started. Right Back Where We Started From by Maxine Nightingale kicked off 1976 with an energy that couldn't be ignored. Nightingale's journey to stardom wasn't the typical road to success. She actually started as a backup singer in the West End production of Hair in London. The British singer's record label initially didn't want to release this song in America, believing it was too British for U.S. audiences. In a bold move that would change her life, Nightingale herself pushed for its U.S. release. The song's production history reveals a fascinating story of perseverance. Producer Pierre Tubbs had originally written it for a different artist who rejected it. When Nightingale recorded it, she nailed it in just 2 takes. The track's distinctive sound came from an unconventional recording technique where they actually slowed down the tape during recording and sped it back up in playback to create that unique vocal effect. Here's something that might surprise you. Maxine Nightingale had never been to America when this song became a hit there. She first visited the U.S. after the song had already reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, making her first American television appearance on American Bandstand. Moving on to Elvin Bishop's Fooled Around and Fell in Love, this track marked a significant departure from Bishop's usual style. Bishop, who earned his stripes playing with the Paul Butterfield Blues Band in Chicago's gritty blues scene, made an unusual decision with this song. He chose not to sing it himself. Despite being the band's lead vocalist, he handed the microphone to his backup singer, Mickey Thomas. The recording sessions for this song were notoriously tense. Bishop and Thomas reportedly clashed over the song's direction, with Bishop wanting to maintain his blues roots, while Thomas pushed for a more commercial sound. The tension actually worked in their favor, creating an energy that translated perfectly onto vinyl. The track was recorded live in the studio, capturing the raw emotion of the moment, something rarely done in that era of multi-track recording. Few people know that this song was actually inspired by a real-life romance gone wrong. Bishop wrote it after a relationship ended badly, but instead of making it a sad breakup song, he flipped the narrative to focus on falling in love. The guitar solo was recorded in 1 take, with Bishop using a 1959 Gibson Les Paul that he'd bought for $100, a guitar that would be worth over $500,000 today. If you're enjoying these musical memories, don't keep them to yourself. Hit that like button and share this video with your friends who lived through this incredible era. We'd love to hear your memories of these songs in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to catch more videos about the music that shaped our lives. Get Closer by Seals and Crofts came at a time when the duo was facing serious internal conflicts. Jim Seals and Dash Crofts, childhood friends from Texas, were struggling with creative differences and personal beliefs that were starting to affect their music. Their involvement with the Baha'i faith had begun to influence their songwriting, causing tension with their record label. Get closer to me. The song's creation was actually a compromise between artistic vision and commercial pressure. Their producer, Louis Shelton, convinced them to blend their spiritual messages with more accessible love lyrics. The result was this smooth, polished track that masked the turbulent circumstances of its creation. The song's signature harmonies were achieved through an exhausting process of recording over 50 vocal takes. Interestingly, the distinctive mandolin riff in Get Closer was played on an instrument that once belonged to Bill Monroe, the father of bluegrass music. Crofts had purchased it at a pawn shop without knowing its history, only discovering its provenance years later when Monroe himself recognized it at a chance meeting. Welcome Back by John Sebastian tells a story of reinvention. Sebastian, formerly of the Lovin' Spoonful, was initially resistant to write a theme song for a television show. Having been a key figure in the 1960s folk scene, he viewed television work as selling out. The producer of Welcome Back, Cotter, had to convince him by showing rough cuts of the show and explaining how the theme needed to capture the feeling of returning home. The recording process was unconventional. Sebastian recorded the track in his home studio, playing most of the instruments himself.
Welcome back to that same old place that
The network executives initially rejected the song, wanting something more upbeat and contemporary. Sebastian stood his ground, arguing that the nostalgic tone was essential to the show's theme of returning to one's roots. The executives finally relented, and the song became Sebastian's only #1 hit as a solo artist. Not many people know that the show was originally titled Kotter, and Sebastian's song was initially called Welcome Back Kotter. The network liked the song so much, they shortened the show's name to Welcome Back Kotter to match the song's more memorable hook. Henry Gross brought us Shannon, a song that stirred controversy due to its unusual subject matter. Gross, who had been the youngest performer at Woodstock at age 18, wrote this emotional tribute about a dog, specifically Beach Boy Carl Wilson's Irish setter who had died in a tragic accident. Many radio stations initially refused to play a song about a dead dog, considering it too depressing for mainstream radio. The production of Shannon was equally unconventional. Gross used actual dog barks in the background of the track, processed through various effects to create ethereal sounds that many listeners mistook for synthesizers. The song's distinctive falsetto vocals were inspired by Brian Wilson's technique, and Gross spent weeks perfecting the vocal approach. Here's a surprising fact. Carl Wilson's dog Shannon had actually died by drowning, and many people thought the song was too specific and personal to release. However, it resonated with pet owners across the country, and Gross still receives letters today from people who connected with the song's message about loss and grief. We're diving deep into our musical memories, and we want to hear yours. What memories did these songs bring back? Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you're enjoying this trip down memory lane, and don't forget to subscribe for more forgotten classics from the years that shaped our lives. Billy Ocean's Love Really Hurts Without You marked his breakthrough into mainstream success, but the path wasn't easy. Born Leslie Sebastian Charles in Trinidad, Ocean faced significant racial discrimination in the British music industry of the 1970s. Many radio stations initially refused to play his music, claiming his sound was too American for British audiences. The recording of this track revealed the harsh realities of the music industry in the mid-70s. Ocean had to record the vocal track more than 25 times because the producer insisted his Caribbean accent was too prominent. The session musicians, many of whom had never worked with a black artist before, were initially skeptical, but ended up being won over by Ocean's professionalism and talent. A fascinating detail about this song is that Ocean wrote it while working as a tailor in London's East End. He would scribble lyrics on patterns and fabric scraps between fitting customers. The song's distinctive bass line was actually inspired by the rhythm of his sewing machine. Thin Lizzy's The Boys Are Back in Town emerged from the band's tumultuous period of lineup changes and financial struggles. Phil Lynott, the band's charismatic frontman, had written the song about a gang of friends from his youth in Dublin, but the record label initially dismissed it as too regional and specific to resonate with a wider audience. The song's famous guitar harmonies were actually a happy accident. Guitarist Scott Gorham and Brian Robertson were recording separate takes when someone accidentally played both tracks simultaneously, creating the signature twin guitar sound that would become Thin Lizzy's trademark. The band was nearly dropped by their label before this song's success. Many fans don't know that the song almost didn't make it onto the album. It was added at the last minute when producer John Alcock insisted they needed one more up-tempo track. Lowdown by Boz Scaggs represented a dramatic shift in his musical direction. After leaving the Steve Miller Band, Scaggs struggled to find his own sound. He actually recorded and scrapped an entire album's worth of material before hitting on the smooth, sophisticated style that would define Lowdown.
To the sad old truth, the dirty lowdown.
The track's distinctive sound came from an unusual recording setup. The rhythm section was recorded in a bathroom for better acoustics, and the horn section was placed in the studio's reception area. The song's complex chord progressions confused many radio programmers who couldn't decide if it was R&B, jazz, or pop, leading to it being played on multiple format stations. Few people realized that the song's famous bass line was played by David Hungate, who would later become a founding member of Toto. The song was recorded in one continuous take with no splicing or editing. Gary Wright's Dreamweaver pushed the boundaries of what was possible with synthesizer technology in 1976. Wright, who had played keyboards with the British band Spooky Tooth, mortgaged his house to buy the cutting-edge synthesizers needed to create the song's otherworldly sound. The record label executives were convinced the all-synthesizer arrangement would never work on radio. The recording process was groundbreaking. It was one of the first pop songs to use no traditional acoustic or electric instruments beside drums. Wright had to record each synthesizer part separately and bounce them down to other tracks because the studio's 24-track recorder couldn't handle all the separate synthesizer parts simultaneously. A little-known fact about Dreamweaver is that it was inspired by Wright's friendship with George Harrison and his introduction to Eastern spirituality. The title came from a book about Indian philosophy that Harrison had given him. Starbuck's Moonlight Feels Right closed out our 1976 journey with a unique sound that featured something rarely heard in rock music, a marimba solo. The band, formed from the ashes of a group called Eternity's Children, faced constant rejection from record labels who claimed their sound was too difficult to categorize. The song's signature marimba solo was performed by Bo Wagner, who had been a child star in the 1950s.
Feels right.
The solo was recorded in complete darkness because Wagner claimed he could feel the notes better that way. The band actually recorded the basic track in a basement studio that flooded during the sessions. You can hear the slight echo created by the water under the floorboards. Here's something most people don't know. The distinctive percussion sound in the chorus was created by the band members slapping their car keys on a table in rhythm. They couldn't afford proper percussion instruments at the time, so they had to get creative. Thanks for joining me on this journey through these forgotten songs of 1976. If you enjoyed these stories behind the songs, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss a video. Until next time, keep the music alive.